Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Damage Report Lockdown Edition on Wednesday, which is important for reasons I'll get into in about 15 seconds. Hopefully everything's going to work. Obviously, if you were tuning in live yesterday, we did have some technical issues. We're hoping they're all resolved. Earlier today, my guest and I had some Skype issues, so screw Skype, we're not using it right now. But anyway, we've got an awesome show planned for you. I'll give you details in just a second. Thank you to everybody who has already joined in the chat. The thing I'm most excited about today is that it is not just Wednesday, it is JR Wednesday, and JR Jackson joins us now. How's it going, JR?
What's going on, John? You know what? No technical difficulties from JR Wednesday's side, man. We're going to make this happen. You know why? We have the power of the quarantine beard going.
I actually brushed mine too. Mine is starting to grow a little bit too. Yours is longer.
This is getting out of control, bro.
Yeah. I was just looking at some photos of when I was in the Arctic, and you're past that level. The maximum, not overall, but the maximum length is like twice as long.
I usually keep something here. Now, if I let everything go, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah. So here's what I'm hoping. I hope that people can hear you. Can everyone hear JR? Because that was a gigantic problem yesterday.
Yes, oh.
Yeah. I could hear the guest, but they could not. I'm going to assume so far no one has said he's silent, so that's good.
I'm looking closely.
That's the extreme close-up mode. So anyway, thank you to everybody who is here. Very glad to have you joining us today. We're going to try to get all the audio levels at the right point. So to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today, we do have some fallout from yesterday's Trump press conference. I want to criticize Trump, obviously, but the media as well, because, man, though, the bar is always sinking when it comes to him, and it looks like, indeed, they can hear everything. Awesome. Yeah, we're totally color coordinating today, by the way.
Oh.
the all blue. We're feeling blue because we're stuck at home. Updated potential death counts from the administration. We'll be talking about that. Updates also on the Senate insider trading issue that I don't think is being talked about nearly enough. And then we've got other stuff too, how the coronavirus is affecting the environment and the EPA. And The View is having Bernie Sanders on. This is gonna be the last story, so stick around for the full show. You have to see a promo that they ran about Bernie Sanders' impending appearance. Like, if it had been on Fox News, I would have thought, that's about what I would expect. But this is The View. Take a look in a little bit at what they had to say about him. Okay, I'm gonna. Apparently, I'm loud and you're quiet, so I'm gonna be evening that out as we go.
That might be just normal for your voice versus mine, John.
I do yell. Also, I'm alone, and my dog doesn't seem to mind when I yell. But anyway, for those of you who haven't already, if you can like the video, if you want to share it on social media, feel free to do that. We want to get as many people involved in the conversation as possible. And as we've been doing, I will be responding to your super chats and some of your comments as we go on. So feel free to do those too. If you have questions or comments, or just want to say something to myself or to JR, you can do it that way. And with that, why don't we jump into the first big story of the show?
Yes.
Yesterday, Donald Trump finally seemed to accept that this is not going to be sort of an easy road that we're going down, and that, in fact, many Americans might end up losing their lives. Here is what he had to say.
We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks. And then hopefully, as the experts are predicting, as I think a lot of us are predicting after having studied it so hard, you're going to start seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel. But this is going to be a very painful, very, very painful 2 weeks. When you look and see at night the kind of death that's been caused by this invisible enemy, it's incredible. I was watching last night Governor Murphy of New Jersey say 29 people died today, meaning yesterday, and
okay, so JR, there you had him admitting that we're going to have a very difficult 2 weeks, a very, very painful 2 weeks, and he admitted hearing that in one area, 29 people had died just overnight. And so, like, he's accepting it's going to be very bad. That's good. I kind of wish that he'd been talking about this 2 months ago, that if he had, perhaps Fox News would have felt freed up to admit that it's going to be bad. Not just because, people should understand what's going to happen, but because governors and mayors could have put social distancing policies into effect earlier. We know that some places like DeSantis in Florida, still, he seems to think, well, we've closed down some beaches, but do we really have to go crazy over this thing? Perhaps if Donald Trump had reached the point he did on April 1st, and because of that date, I'm a little bit worried that this is all some sort of April Fool's joke. Maybe we would be better equipped nationally to deal with this.
Well, this is I think it feeds further into the narrative of not trusting anything he has to say. So even now, I mean, there's this serious tone. He's now getting it. He's taking it seriously. He finally understands. Maybe it's gotten so bad, which is scary, that even Donald Trump figures it out. But I don't believe that. There was reasons to take it seriously weeks ago. He didn't. There was reasons to take it seriously from a government and an intelligence and being brief standpoint months ago. He didn't.
Okay, we've got a bit of an issue there with Discord, apparently. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, so we're going to try to reconnect to JR as soon as we can. I'm going to try to do that right now. By the way, David Baker, I did see your comment. Love you both, amazing host combo. Very much appreciate that. I'm going to try to reconnect with him, which is always fun to do live on the internet. We're going to see if we can get him in. The internet is difficult in the best of times, and of course right now it's probably receiving more use on a daily basis than ever before. So I'm going to let that go. I'm going to be trying to call him. But let's talk a little bit more about this. When he, finally accepts that it's going to be rough, you should understand the scale of what they're talking about here.
Yeah.
There is JR. See, that was fast. That was smooth. Thank you, JR.
Yeah.
Sorry, so you were saying?
Well, I hope I'm not sure exactly which point we lost, but that his track record is horrible. We heard about the track records. Just let me know if you heard that part from me. Yeah. So with anything else, with the job of any other nature or significance or importance, if your track record tells us that you don't take things seriously until it's gotten to a point where it only affects you, I don't take you seriously until I know for sure that it affects you. But even then, what happens is you'll protect yourself and not the people that are affected directly.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, man. There's gonna be no way that I'm gonna take anything he says as any kind of a positive warning going forward.
Yeah, and especially as we're going to get into how directly contradictory what he's saying now is to what he had said before, the perception he wants you to have. And so let's play one other video. This is going to be Acosta, who asks him about the seeming turn in the way he's talking about this, and here is what Trump had to say.
I think it's very
You knew it was
important.
going to be this severe when you were saying this was under
I
control.
thought it could be. I knew everything. I knew it could be horrible, and I knew it could be maybe good. Don't forget, at that time, people didn't know that much about it. Even the experts, we were talking about it. We didn't know where it was going. We saw China, but that was it. Maybe it would have stopped at China. We wish we could have killed it in China. But it didn't happen. It started spreading to Europe. It started spreading here. It started spreading all over. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that we have an incredible thing.
So I love that video because he says, I knew everything. I knew it could be bad. I knew it could be maybe good. And look, I know that he has the worst vocabulary of anybody who regularly has a camera shoved in their face. But what the hell are we supposed to think you mean when you said you were looking at the situation in China and you thought maybe it could end up being good? And also, let's say, really fast, let's say hypothetically it could be good in that maybe it wouldn't spread all over the world, even though people were definitely worried about that at that point. You don't just watch it week after week after week. You do something. We could have used the CDC being spurred to start spreading, producing and distributing tests all around the country. Wouldn't it have been nice to have a 6 or 8 or 10 week advantage on that? We could have had that, but you apparently knew everything and did nothing. And so
it's either a lie that he knew everything, which of course he has the opportunity and the means to know everything and do nothing. Or, I mean, we did get Wilbur Ross. Let's not forget, Wilbur Ross did get in front of cameras. And when this was all starting, when we thought it was only something that was going on in this particular section of the world over in China. So he said this could actually be good for the economy because he was thinking it's going to put their economy in decline, their production in decline. and then those things would actually come to affect us positively. That's where he was like, oh, I was thinking maybe it'd be good for us, because we again thought this is so foreign, and it goes to these enemies of ours, these economic enemies of ours. So therefore, we'll let them take care of it, and they're going to be hurt, and we're going to reap the benefits of this. Again, not preparing for the possibility of things coming this direction, which his only preparation for that actually was travel bans, which he was trying to put in place. And he's bragged about how that he was in the forefront of travel bans. Again, let's go back to your track record. No one trusts your track record on travel bans because you flippantly put those in positions before out of racial animosity towards a particular group. We know how you operate, so no one wants to hear about your travel bans when you're talking about blocking another country from having any travel here.
Yeah, and also that, like, if that was what you believed was the only thing that needed to be done, and that's what you did, let's say hypothetically everything he says about his view of travel bans was true. Right now, as of my reload, there are 205,000 cases in the United States alone. Already almost 500 new deaths reported today. Does it seem like the travel ban worked? Maybe restricting travel would be a good idea, but also prepare for the inevitable likelihood that it would not keep the disease out. And if people, even if 1 or if 2 or if 10 people get over, then it could spread. So maybe we should be ready for it. But he still wants credit for something that has obviously not succeeded. Imagine at this late date still thinking that you deserve credit for something that clearly didn't stop more than 1/5 of a million people getting the disease as of today, let alone in a week or two.
Yeah,
and really
we're finding
fast,
out. Sorry, go ahead. Go.
I want your reaction to this too, because this is something that we've been talking about for a while, but this was a slide from the press conference yesterday. And look at the look on his face as he gazes at how many people might die if nothing is done, and how many people might die. The goals of community mitigation. So the goal is 100 to 200,000 deaths. And he looks at it like I might look at the menu of a restaurant when I'm not particularly hungry. Like, really, do I have to deal with this? Honestly, do I have to? And understand, like, he could put pressure on states across the country for a national social distancing stay-at-home order. He can't necessarily force it, but if he wants to pressure states, he's not shy about doing that under normal circumstances. If he really wanted, if that was really a goal, he could be pursuing it far stronger than he is now.
Yeah,
and that's the goal.
So give me the screenshot, because I'm only getting me right now since I've come back. I haven't gotten you, so I'm not seeing if you put something up as far as the screen.
I'm gonna try to fix that as you look at that.
Yeah. So okay.
There you go.
Oh, am I getting you?
You getting me?
Okay. Yes, he's looking at this curve, right?
Yep.
The main thing is he doesn't understand it. And maybe they tried to brief him on it beforehand. Maybe they tried to give him some clues about what he's going to be looking at as he gets to this point. But it's a confused child in a classroom setting that's been called in front of the class to explain his the lesson of the day, and he's unable to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, straight up, I know there's a lot of childlike connections and comparisons we make of him, but they're too obvious for us not to.
Yeah.
It's a daily illustration in how woefully unprepared and honestly unwilling to learn that this guy has. And again, this is not new. This is not new. We've heard about it from the beginning. And this is people that had Trump derangement syndrome and people that were just hate the president just because of who he is and all that stuff, that refuse to believe. He's shown us from the beginning. He's uninterested in learning things. He's uninterested in reading. He's uninterested in briefings that are longer than a page with a bunch of pictures. Yeah. All this was said beforehand. This shouldn't be surprising to anyone, but we weren't paying attention because we said, yeah, it'll be okay. It's Donald Trump, right?
Yeah, you know, what's the worst case scenario? I mean, nothing bad ever happens in the world. Nothing that actually requires leadership or understanding or respect for expertise or anything like that. It's just the world. Yeah,
which goes to my other point. There was pandemic preparedness sheets put together back in September of last year, specifically within his administration, put together for the potential for something like this to happen, how it can affect the economy, lives, and worldwide on a pandemic. They called it something like a flu-like pandemic, but didn't, of course, call it particularly this. And their gauges were based off something that isn't as deadly or as contagious as this is.
Yeah.
There was guidelines put in place to approach something like that. They were ignored as well as an Obama administration era worksheet or a guideline put together after they went through everything with I want to say swine, but it wasn't. It wasn't swine flu. It was Ebola.
Yeah.
So that was put together after after they went through that, and whatever mistakes or whatever accomplishments they did put together as a guideline. Yeah. Ignored, put aside, collected dust on the shelf.
Exactly. Luminia sent in a super chat saying, "Love you, John and JR. Stay safe." Luminia, you should stay safe as well. There are a lot of people saying that they love JR Wednesday, so they're very happy to see you, even if you are a little blue. And thank you to everybody who's joining us. There's more than 2,000 people, so hypothetically, there could be 2,000 likes. People, help us reach that lofty goal. Okay, and with that, why don't we turn to one of the things that's frustrated me the most over the last day. Donald Trump admitted at yesterday's press conference that 1 to 200,000 Americans could die, even if the goal is reached, even if all of the advice that they're providing, advice and little else, is actually followed. That could happen. And because he admitted that, media figures, pundits, and writers have just tripped over themselves to give him credit once again for the moment when he became presidential. And so just as a few examples, and I'm not really trying to single out anyone, but we do need to show you some examples of this. So Eric Lipton said, "Trump sounding different today. Scale of death appears to have changed his tone at least." He did put at least, so that's good. That's good. Jake Sherman, "This is absolutely new message and new tone from Trump." Acosta, who was in that video we showed you earlier, "This was a different Donald Trump tonight. I think he gets it." Look, I get that I have Trump derangement syndrome. I don't think he gets it. Kelly O'Donnell says the tone and seriousness was different today. Okay, so he talked about, the fact that so many people might die. But honestly, how after 3+ years of this could you think that what he said yesterday has any correlation to what he'll say tomorrow, to what insane theory he'll come up with, what weird CEO he'll trot in front of the cameras, what reporter he'll misogynistically attack? The idea that he has changed, he can't change in any significant way. And even if he could, he would refuse to, because he thinks that he is perfect in literally every way. I don't understand how the media can still be fooled by this, by a speech, by an appearance with a teleprompter, by any of that they could still think that it means anything.
I don't know. This is why he's gotten through life the way he has. He's had a lifelong, an adult life full of failures, brought on by himself, instituted by himself. But every time he's done so, he's gotten an excuse, or when he's come up with an excuse, people have accepted it. So when you accept someone's excuses for their incompetence, they'll continue to engage in that same behavior. And we see it over and over again. So it's been 3 years of sheer incompetence and failure. He changes his tone for one press conference, and he's getting praise for it. Mm-hmm. This is the approach we've taken. And it's been a couple times, by the way. He launches bombs into the Middle East, and we go, look at those beautiful bombs. Brian Williams, established NBC News anchor. Look at those beautiful bombs. It's like the 4th of July. Yeah. So doing those things, it encourages him to continue this behavior. So you think he's not reading everyone's tweets saying, "Oh, look, Trump's tone has changed. Looks like he gets it." He's like, "Yep, that's right. I got it." And as soon as he goes to that pompous point of view, he reverts right back to where he was before, because that's who he is.
Yeah. Look, if he was to read the reaction and actually change, okay, that's sort of putting social pressure. I have no problem with that. It's just that I don't trust literally any of this. And I don't get how these people who are, they're obviously far smarter than us and far better educated, far better trained, have more experience, these lofty, dignified reporters and pundits and hosts, that they could still be falling into this trap. People who have themselves been viciously attacked and mocked and lied about by this president who is clearly trying to do a little bit of PR, like some of the hosts on Fox are, about the way he's talked about this disease before, and we'll have more on that in just a minute. I shouldn't be surprised. But these are the people that they continually say are the fake news, that they have Trump derangement syndrome. They're just trying to take down the president. And they are doing everything they can to extend an olive branch to a guy who is going to like just snatched out of their hand and began beating them with it.
Yeah. So think about it. There's this approach that many people have, some in the media, maybe this is their thought, is if you be nice to him and acknowledge his moments of normalcy, which I still don't think this is normal, but acknowledge his approach to humanity. If you praise him, you at least get that more of that in return. At least he'll start doing things that can help Americans. Don't you just want to help us get out of this pandemic rather than criticize him at every turn? At least join the help, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is, again, he has no reason.
Okay, we might be, unless he's just stoically staring into the camera, we might have a bit of a problem with Jared Jackson. So we're gonna try to resolve that. But obviously I share the way he feels about this, and we continually say, like, how often do we go over the fact that if Donald Trump has a talent, if he has ever had a talent, it's at branding and honestly marketing in a particularly manipulative fashion, particularly manipulation of people's perception of himself. And there was decades of evidence of that long before he ever, came down that escalator. And they still fall to it. They still buy it. And this isn't regular time. It would be sad enough in regular times, but these are times where people's perception of what Donald Trump is saying, whether it's true or not, their perception of what he's doing, whether it's effective or sufficient or not, matters. It matters for many, many lives. Look, hopefully it's just a blip in the radar and they'll go back to being critical of him in the future. But I don't know. I saw a New York Times headline. It was so he was caught on a call to governors saying he hasn't heard about any issues with people getting testing, where governors, including I believe specifically in Montana, are saying we are going to run out like very, very soon. We need more tests. And he says, we don't have tests. And the New York headline was, despite pushback, Trump says no issues with testing. But like, you're the New York Times. You're not supposed to just listen to what he says. And you have yourself reported about these issues, about the difficulty in getting tests to many areas. So how could you send that? And that's not just one individual with one tweet. That's the paper of record. Okay, so we're going to try to get JR back. In the meantime, thank you to everybody who's sending in the super chats. So John O'Shea said, do you think that couple died because Trump said chloroquine might work? I have no idea. Hey, JR, how's it going?
There it is.
There you go. It might happen every once in a while. The internet is a fickle mistress. But anyway, I was reading some super chats. Do we think that the couple died because Trump said chloroquine might work? I honestly have no idea. It would be an odd coincidence if it wasn't related to that. And I know that like Fox News' response was, yeah, but they weren't even taking the actual medicine. They were taking something that's derived from it for aquarium use. How is that a response to the concern that they did it because of Trump? That they apparently thought it was related. They were desperate, and so that they took it? Like, I don't get how that's a defense at all.
We can answer the question because the man who died, his widow, she said that's why they did it. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know who else we can ask except for the person who did it, and her telling us that she did it because the president said so.
Exactly.
The argument is over. Now, you can then call her names and say she took a wrong form of it and didn't pay full attention. All that's valid. But we can't eliminate the fact that the idea came because they were listening to the president.
Yeah. Name Withheld says, if he did nothing, the curve would be huge. If he did what he's supposed to do, it would be small. But what is he actually doing? Yeah, look, because of all the pressure that people in media and politicians have put on him, the CDC is making more tests, although the amount being done per day over the past 3 or 4 days has been effectively constant. It is not rising anymore, that is disconcerting. Yeah. The only way we're going to be able to get back to normal is with we need testing everywhere effectively and the ability to do the tests very quickly. If we're going to go back to people interacting with each other, they need to be able to find out if they're infected very quickly and not be tested and then have days possibly of walking around and infecting others. And so we have made progress on that, but we're not where we need to be. And as I said in the beginning of the show, in terms of a directive to shut down, there has been nothing like that nationally.
Yeah, and it's not going to go anywhere. I don't know if you're going to get to Ron DeSantis and his decision not to.
I mentioned it briefly earlier, but yeah, he doesn't want to accept it still. This is the cost of having a Republican governor.
Yep, and he won't do it until the Trump task force tells him to. He won't make any independent decisions for his state and for the citizens of his state and for the people who elected him, he won't do it. Instead, he's going to wait for the Trump task force, who has shown their severe level of incompetence, to tell him what to do in his state.
Yeah.
Okay.
William Emerson says, an expert said you basically can multiply the deaths by 800 to see how many are infected, not just tested. That puts U.S. over 1% infected at moment. I haven't seen that, but thank you for that. There needs to be captions under his video, his name withheld said, to read what he actually means. Maybe it would change people's minds. Yeah, I don't know. I read the quotes, and they generally don't make much more sense than the actual video. Reggie Miller says all he sees is money, and the market is so shot. He made the connection that people dying is bad for business. I do think that that's affecting him and a lot of people there.
Absolutely.
And Little Yumper says, I'm sorry, but that stare by Jer was hilarious. So you couldn't tell, but when you disconnected, you were stuck like...
Wait, I can't see you. I can't see you.
Oh, you
either.
can't see me? Okay, let me get that fixed for you. Yeah, you were stuck just staring like wide-eyed into the camera, like I had just said something that you couldn't believe.
Oh, you probably did.
Okay, so you should... Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Good.
I got you. Yeah, there was, first off, two things. Reggie Miller, who just jumped in the super chat, and I think you read his message. Mm-hmm. Thank you. First of all, Reggie Miller, you were my favorite NBA player growing up. You're the reason.
I knew you were going to mention
the reason that I wore number 31 in high school. It's because of you, bro. Actually, no, I tried to wear number 31, and then we stopped doing the odd numbers. Anyways, and number two, what was the face? I feel like you made it, but I missed it.
Oh, it was like this. It's pretty
good. Of course
it
was.
I liked it.
So I'm sorry. So there was one small thing on that point, because we were talking about how the media figures are saying his tone has changed and they're being nice to him. I have not a hypothesis, but it's part of the thought process that people have. So it's based off of what we always say. Mm-hmm. If you be nice, things can change with this president. So why does that have to be a requirement is my question. Hey, who cares if we're nice to him? If I'm the president of the United States and say 70% of the population hates me and says all these things about me, doesn't like my face, doesn't like the color tie I wear, doesn't like my shoes, whatever it is that he says are outward disconnected reasons to dislike him. That's his stance. That's his point of view. They just hate me to hate me, which is BS. Fine, whatever. Even if you hate me just to hate me, it's still my job to protect the American people. It's still my job to take these press briefings seriously. It's still my job to take any intelligence briefings. It's my job to stop this pandemic. I don't care how much you dislike me or like me. Why is that a requirement based off whether or not you do your job?
Exactly.
It shouldn't be, and it's not. But in this guy's case, it is. So be nice to me, and maybe I'll do my job. Hey, that sounds like you shouldn't be doing this job.
Yeah. 100%. You wouldn't accept it anywhere else. Why would you accept it from the most powerful person in the country? And Dr. Zippy McScoots, thank you for your super chat. Glenn Beck wants the rest of us to sacrifice ourselves for the economy, while he himself broadcasts from the safety and security of his home studio. Yeah, like imagine if I told you, yeah, no, everything's fine. You just go. All of you, go. My wife and I, we're going to be here inside. Hand sanitizer, gloves, masks. We were masked to sleep, but you should go out, because it would be really convenient to me if Amazon Prime was back to 2-day delivery. So go. Yeah. Like, would you trust me? No, you would not.
Yeah, John, and also, John, your dead giveaways that you have 272 board games behind you that you can play for a very long time, so there's no way you're going anywhere.
No, some of these, I mean, Gloomhaven, I could play that for 100, 200 hours. Probably more, actually, let alone. I just did a puzzle. I've got more puzzles. That was 1,000 pieces. I got a 3,000 piece one. I could ride it out till the fall. Anyway, okay, with that, why don't we jump into another story? Okay. Yesterday, when the media was giving Trump credit for changing his tone and seeming more serious, more recognizing of the threat faced by coronavirus, the damage that's going to be done, it was frustrating to me because I know what he's said before and what he's done so far. And what do you know? It didn't take even a day. In that same press conference, he started to try to rewrite what he's said before. So we're going to play 2 videos, and then we're going to correct the record with a bit of fact-checking. So here's the first.
I've been doing this for a long time. The question is, what would have happened if we did nothing? Because there was a group that said, let's just write it out. Let's write it out. What would have happened? And that number comes in at 1.5 to 1.6 million people, up to 2.2 and even beyond. So that's 2.2 million people would have died if we did nothing. We just carried on our life. Now, I don't think that would have been possible because you would have had people dying all over the place. This would not have been a normal life. How many?
So there he says, you know, what if we had done nothing? What if we had just tried to ride this out? What if we had pretended like everything was going to be okay? So here's the thing. I can think of a few people who tried to imply that we could just ride this out. Do you remember like 3.5 days ago when he was saying by Easter, we're going to be cool? You know, when he was on Fox News with Sean Hannity and he was saying, you know, a lot of people, like their symptoms aren't going to be bad and they're going to go to work and it's going to be okay. And then suddenly they're just going to get better. So we have another video that's going to be worse, but from the beginning, the idea that other people were saying, don't do anything, just ride this out, JR. What do you think about him taking that tone now?
Well, because others said that, so he's of course detaching himself from himself, who said these things. And honestly, you know what? I just read something this morning. Devin Nunes is upset that California, of course, he's representative of California, that California schools are pretty much considering to cancel the rest of the school year and then do whatever they're doing remotely. And he said, you know, it's way overblown, all this stuff. We should be back in 2 to 4 weeks. They're still pushing this line. So, hey, detach yourselves from people like him, one of your best friends and biggest supporters, through all of the craziness that you put the country through. Detach yourselves from them as well. It's rewriting history. This is the most important part of this pandemic to him, is making sure that he comes out scot-free and clean from it, rather than having any kind of responsibility to it or connection to it, or effect on it spreading even further.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Well, it's about to get even worse. I want you to give me just 1 second because we might have been having a problem there, although I don't see why we would have.
No.
Okay, I apologize if this doesn't play, but I will fill you in just in case. But here he gets more specific. He wants you to be angry at the people who tried to pretend for literally weeks that this was just the flu.
A relatively short period of time. But think of what would have happened if we didn't do anything. I mean, I've had many friends, business people with great actually common sense. They said, why don't we write it out? A lot of people have said, a lot of people have thought about it. Write it out. Don't do anything. Just write it out and think of it as the flu. But it's not the flu. It's vicious. When you send a friend to the hospital and you call up to find out how is he doing, it happened to me, where goes to the hospital, he says goodbye, he's sort of a tough guy, a little older, a little heavier than he'd like to be, frankly. And you call up the next day, how's he doing? And he's in a coma? This is not the flu.
Okay, so JR, there he says, you know, people are like, this is just the flu. It's not the flu. It's vicious. He tells a story about his friend who's a little bit older, a tough guy who's a little bit heavier than he wants to be, who suddenly is in a coma. I'm fairly certain he is making that up and he's talking about himself and his fears about himself getting coronavirus, because that sounds made up. We can't say for sure, but you never know with him because he's a massive liar. But there he said people were trying to act like this was just the flu, and that's irresponsible because this is not just the flu.
Oh, well, again, so we have to make sure that, I don't know if he knows if he's having this argument with himself, and also the fact that things that he said and tweeted in the past are still there. They exist. Again, what's the end game? I'm still not sure how he expects this to go over well. No one believes it. His supporters don't believe it. Because the reason why I know his supporters don't believe it is because his supporters believed him when he said the opposite. And did the opposite. And how we need to be back and the economy needs to come back. And what was it? You said it was even last week? We can't let the remedy be worse than the flu itself, or whatever.
We can't let the cure be worse than the disease.
What does that mean?
It means go back to normal. That's what it means.
It's like last week, but it doesn't matter. He just says it and walks away. And then if a reporter asks him, says, so you said this last week, 2 weeks ago, last month, 2 months ago. And you know what he says to them instead? You're a nasty reporter. That's a nasty question. Oh, this is a doozy. Hey, why don't you guys ask questions that actually help people? All these things, instead of answering the question and point out his the history he's got behind it. Again, that's the theme here. Every time he's gotten upset at a reporter in these briefings, it's because they asked him about his previous response. That is the key. That's the thing that hooks him, because that's what he doesn't want to have happening. It's him being connected to what he did.
Harum says worse than a pathological liar, disingenuous. Yeah. And so, you know what? I would like to be very briefly, if you'll bear with me, I would like to be a bad reporter. I would like to be nasty and threatening and not nice. Because when he says other people were pretending that it was just the flu, I thought, well, that's weird because I'm pretty sure over the last month I've read many articles with him saying that it was just the flu. In fact, we've talked about it before on the show. So I did a little bit of digging online. And here's a few things. March 9th. So last year, 37,000 Americans died from the common flu. It averages between 27 and 70K per year. Nothing is shut down. Life and the economy go on. At this moment, there are 546 confirmed cases of coronavirus with 22 deaths. Think about that. So he's saying there's like none, and we don't shut it down even if it was way worse. So he is definitely saying just ride it out, don't do anything. And he is comparing it to the common flu, but hold for just a sec because it gets worse. Okay, just a week ago, Trump told Fox News in an interview that despite deaths of about 36,000 people a year on average from flu, quote, we've never closed down the country for the flu. So you say to yourself, what is this all about? That was 1 week ago. And we appear to have lost J.R. Jackson again, but I'm gonna press forward and we're gonna try to get him reconnected. So 1 week ago on Fox News, he's saying, we don't close things down. But it's even worse because he had a press conference. This is back, I believe, on February 26th. And there's a few quotes there that are just amazing. He said, at that point, we've had some pretty bad flus, and we've had some pretty bad viruses, and we've never closed the country before. We have to go back to work. So again, we've had disease before. We've had flus before. What are we going to shut things down? He said this at that same one, February 26th. When I mentioned the flu, I said, actually, I asked the various doctors, I said, is this just like flu? Because people die from the flu. And this is very unusual. And it is a little bit different. But in some ways, it's easier. And in some ways, it's a little bit tougher. So we've got JR, who's going to be joining us in 1 second. So JR, I was just playing back one of the things he had said, where on February 26th, he said, this is a little bit easier than the flu in some ways. Yeah. And then when he says people say it's just like the flu, at that February 26th press conference, I found a quote that seems to indicate a little bit of hypocrisy when he said, this is a flu, this is like a flu.
I'm trying to figure out how you read so deep into that to get that he said this is a flu, John. Come on.
This is a flu. This is like a flu. Who are these people saying it's like a flu? This is a flu. This is like a flu. Those people were irresponsible. People will die because they didn't take it serious. This is a flu. This is like a flu.
Blood on their hands.
Now it doesn't matter. Like in terms of the reporters, they can't, like if Yamiche takes this quote and reads it to him, it's not going to get him because you can't get him. His fans don't care. And you know, as I was getting some of these quotes, some were tweets. And so when you go back to a tweet from 3 weeks ago, the responses generally are from that day. And so some of his tweets where he was saying the media is like freaking out, they're trying to create a panic, they're pretending this is going to be really bad. There were responses with thousands of retweets of, you know, Trump super repliers who were like, yeah, the media is just trying to crash the economy. This isn't a big deal. And like, I looked at those names and I thought, do any of those people now think, wow, I was really misled? The media was right. This is really bad. There aren't 500 cases anymore. There are 200,000 cases right now and getting worse.
Yeah, once Trump takes this, quote, serious tone that everyone's giving him credit for now, do they think, oh, the serious tone, now it's a big deal. Now it's for real. But, you know, a month ago, it wasn't for real. 2 weeks ago, it wasn't for real. Last week, it wasn't for real. Because that's how recently he's been pushing this narrative. I don't know. It's would be a great question to ask. Because there's probably been countless mental collisions of reality from his supporters have had every time they believed something he said and then saw the reality way later and had to deal with the fact that they were told the opposite and believed it. And it's tough, I guess, man. That's your hero. So, you know, you go for it, but then eventually you have to realize your hero is not working for you.
A massive liar.
Yeah.
And I just want to add one more thing. This is a flu. This is like a flu. It's literally what he was attacking. It couldn't be more direct.
Can I give you an example of a real denial that turned into a real apology and real acknowledgement? So Evangeline Lilly, who was on,
Yes.
who's like Ant-Man, what's it, the Wasp, right?
Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And
Yeah.
she was in Lost, if you want to go way back. So she came out originally,
The Hobbit.
and she was dropping. Yeah, oh yeah, The Hobbit. I didn't see it. Heard that was gonna be good. She came out originally talking about how frustrated she is at the panic and the anxiety and the pushing things aside. And she dropped her kids off at gymnastics and posted, they washed their hands, they're fine, moving on with life, right? And then she got some pushback, and then reality continued to set in, and she saw what was really going on. So her motivations were based on whatever. She came forward with an apology. And this is how you apologize. She goes, weeks ago, first of all, I apologize for people that I dismissed, the people that are most affected, and all this for my flippant approach, right? I'm paraphrasing. She may not necessarily use those words. And then went on to say, I was masking my own fears and concerns about it by trying to go on with a normal everyday life and not acknowledging it. Yeah. That's a real apology that actually talks about the people you hurt, talks about the reasons why you did the stuff that you did, and then acknowledges that you've switched it and the reasons why you have. That's how you acknowledge that you were wrong before, and now you've come to this point because you actually care, rather than someone who doesn't care and all they're looking for is to protect their ego and their image. That's the difference. She's a celebrity. She's a known figure. She's someone who probably benefits from people knowing who she is and having a positive outlook about her. But sometimes it helps to just point out that you were wrong. You were the stupid one. You were the one that was causing the problem, and move on. And people might actually like you for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like imagine if Sean Hannity did that. Imagine if he was like, you know what? I've got a lot of reasons to distrust the media and the way that they attack Trump, but I allowed that bias to lead me to believe that they were wrong on something that they were 100% not wrong on. And to the extent that I misled people about this, I apologize. You should take it totally seriously. Listen to the doctors. Like, he would be twisting our arm to give him credit, but he's not going to do it.
All you gotta do is change your tone and you'll get enough acceptance from it.
Yeah, the thing is, like in political commentary, no one's ever wrong. Why would they ever admit that they're wrong? Their fans will hate that they will admit that they're wrong. They'll defend them if they just continue being wrong. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most frustrating things about this. Army of One says, Trump's message on COVID-19 changes every day. Why anyone commends him when he's accidentally sort of on the right message is beyond me. And then adds, love JR. You know what we do too. That's why we want to have him on every week. Okay, so we're going to have to go through the next couple of these stories pretty fast, but they are important, so I want to get in as many as we can. Totally. So let's jump to the next story. This is a flu. Did you know that, by the way? No. Anyway, okay, let's jump on to the next story. So I have been very frustrated by the fact that the apparent insider trading that multiple senators engaged in earlier this year after finding out behind-the-scenes information about how likely coronavirus could be really bad in America, that became a big story for like a day, and then everyone moved on. I'm hoping that will change, especially as new information from reporters is coming out about this. Now, this involves Jeffrey Sprecher, chairman of the New York Stock Exchange, and also husband of Senator Kelly Loeffler, one of those most wrapped up in this story. So let's talk about some of the exchanges in stock that her husband did. So earlier this year, he bought $206,000 in chemical giant DuPont de Nemours in 4 transactions in late February and early March. DuPont has performed poorly on Wall Street lately, but the company is a major supplier of desperately needed personal protective gear as a global pandemic strains hospital and first responders. So far, it doesn't look like that stock is doing amazingly, but it would be reasonable to expect that it would in the future. And certainly at that point, that seemed like a pretty safe bet. At the same time, the couple dumped over $70,000 in stock from Ross Stores and similarly almost $30,000 in stock from the parent company of TJ Maxx and Marshalls. They also sold nearly $60,000 in Lululemon stock in early March, just after the stock dipped from its all-time high. And I think it's safe to assume that retail stores are going to do badly when people can't go outside and can't shop and the stores are shut down for literally months. So again, none of this is proof that she personally said that these changes, these sales and purchases need to happen. She's saying that she didn't. But it all does line up with someone who is getting information that this is going to be serious, wants to personally profit or at least minimize losses from that information, while publicly saying that everything's going to be fine. Donald Trump is doing a great job. There's no reason for you to worry about all this.
The setup is perfectly fine as far as it sets them up for plausible deniability. to say that, hey, this is how it all works. We have financial advisors who read the way the market's going, and they give us these suggestions and advise us to do certain things, and we just do it. I'm not connected to any insider trading or information giving to me and then leading that to my financial portfolio. So you can do that, and then we don't have proof because we don't have the paperwork right there. We don't have the email or conversations that potentially blows all this up. So you can continue to ride this wave. That's the reason why, in order to end all this speculation, maybe when you're an elected member of Congress, you're a senator, you're any of these positions of power where you have this exclusive information that can help you and to make it look like you're using that information to benefit yourself personally, maybe you just shouldn't engage in that while you're serving the people, because that's the beginning of how this works. You're serving the people. From the beginning of this country's history, being an elected official was not a money-making scheme. It was not a way to get rich. Everyone doing it wasn't supposed to be rich. Yes, they were powerful and had land ownership and all that stuff. So it's kind of set us up for that. But the vision of that was supposed to be something for people who's serving the people. It's a part-time thing. You go back and serve your district and your community, and then you come here and you represent them on a collective basis in DC, right? That's how it's supposed to work. Mm-hmm. So when do we start getting into stock buying and selling and inside information, all those trading things that are happening? Because we just got greedy and we allowed people, the most powerful, to do whatever they wanted. I know we can eliminate all that speculation. You won't have to hear about me saying that you're an inside trader, that you're a liar, that you're a criminal, if you just don't engage in that while you're elected. And if you want to engage in it, don't get elected.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, and I guess because they've been allowed to do this for so long, people react to the idea of the change as something extreme. But like, if you want to have this great amount of power, and if we talk about it as service to the country, why would we assume that you wouldn't give up anything to do that? You give up all sorts of freedoms to serve in the armed forces.
Absolutely.
Like senators are supposed to just get benefits? And they will make money in a million different ways after having served as senators. Can we possibly just restrain one of them, at least briefly? Like athletes can't regularly bet on the games that they're playing in, right? Like, what if cops could bet on like crime rates and particular types of crime? Anything you have a personal ability to exercise influence over, to control an outcome, why would we allow you to personally profit from that when that could obviously influence how you do? Like, the athletes theoretically could throw the game. That's the concern. We don't think a senator could throw a stock. We don't think that Kelly Loeffler, who's been in the Senate for a couple of months at this point, oh no, her connection, her reverence for America is too strong to ever do anything unethical. Who actually thinks that? They shouldn't have stocks. Yeah, and thankfully some people, AOC is trying to stop them from having it. It should be required. And this is the story that could break through to people. But unfortunately, not enough people are focusing on it.
Who was our, I think it was a congressman from New York who went down with his son for insider trading. Michael something. Anyway, we'll look him up. But this was last year, even the year before maybe, that absolutely busted on insider trading. That there was no question about it. He was using his influence.
Was it the first representative that endorsed Trump?
May have been one of those, yeah.
I think that might have been.
Congressman insider trading. Anyway, yeah. But again, there's it's not like it's unprecedented. My point is that it's not unprecedented. Whether or not members Collins, maybe Michael, one of those. Whether or not it's not an unprecedented thing for them to actually be doing this. So if you want to avoid being like him, don't even get yourself in this situation in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so a couple super chats. Ricky Williams says, Trump in the hospitality industry, quote, the customer is always right. Trump is president, quote, the customer, aka citizen, is always wrong. Yeah. And Josh N says, great work on the at-home shows. Thank you. We, we're experiencing troubles as everyone is, but we're trying to get a little bit more agile and responsive to dealing with it. Jair's connection has failed a couple times, but I think that we've recovered pretty quickly from it.
I thought that was you every time, bro.
No, my internet's great. Run a speed test, buddy. Anyway, okay.
Hey, one thing to this is very important to point out.
What's that?
Ricky Williams, who just pointed out, had a comment on the super chat. I appreciate everything you did when you were in the NFL. I followed your career, and it was very brave of you the way that you took a stand for your stance on marijuana use and how it doesn't actually negatively affect people's and the athletes' performance. So thank you, Ricky Williams. I appreciate you, man. We have a star-studded athletic.
God damn it. When I read that name, I thought, that sounds like it's probably an athlete. From now on, whenever a guest talks about sports, I'm going to start talking about a board game. I don't care which one. I'm going to do to them what they do to me.
Hey, these athletes just have talents, and they're connected to the world.
Yeah.
It's not just about sports.
Yeah, I know one thing about Ricky Williams. You probably don't expect. His most famous quote is, "This is a flu. This is like a flu." Okay, I feel better again. Okay, let's jump to another important story. But please. Tweet about the insider trading. Like, tweet at Kelly Loeffler, tweet at reporters to follow up on it. Like, if they get through this whole thing, and her and Burr and all of the others, there's nothing, that is gonna be so depressing and expected at the same time. It's gonna be expectedly depressing. Okay, with that, let's jump to another story. Oh, Josh says, please talk about board games. You know, I might. I know that the bots are terrible with the emojis. I'm gonna talk with my team about it. It's hard. There's so many. At some point, I want to do a stream of like me and some of my friends like playing a board game like online or something like that. I just know it's such a niche thing. So we'll see.
I mean, I'm sorry to take us further off of the topic, but
he was about to take us further off the topic when it comes to board games, and so I guess I froze his connection. So he got what he wanted there. So we're gonna try to reconnect to him. Hello, how's it going? Yeah, you were about to change the subject away from board games, so I canceled you.
Okay. Sorry, this is very hiccuppy. It'll be better next Wednesday. I promise that.
Okay, I mean, it might be my connection for all we know. But anyway, while we have you, why don't we jump into the next story? New York has announced that they will be looking into Amazon allegedly firing an employee for speaking up about the conditions in one of their distribution centers on Staten Island, a warehouse where theoretically they were not taking coronavirus seriously. People had gotten it, and they were just expecting people to go about their day, work, and possibly be exposed to it. So I want to give you all the details on this. Now, Amazon said it fired Smalls. This is Chris Smalls, former employee of Amazon, for showing up to work after being in contact with a colleague who was diagnosed with COVID-19 and being asked to stay at home. Smalls denied this, saying that his manager told him to self-quarantine on Saturday and that he hasn't been inside the Staten Island facility since, only outside the building in the parking lot to protest on Monday, where he says he tried to stay 6 feet away from other people. Now, he says that he recently organized a walkout of about 50 people at a fulfillment center in Staten Island to protest the company's decision to keep the facility open, despite allegations that several associates there had already been infected with the disease. Smalls and other employees demanded that Amazon shut down the facility for a minimum of 2 weeks, theoretically to stop if there was any germs on anything, potentially die, but also get it cleaned out, and provide workers with better health protections from coronavirus. And so let's go to JR now. He's saying it's because I spoke up about this that I was raising concerns. They're saying he was trying to expose people or something by going back in. I find that hard to believe. If he was being asked to stay home, he was probably very worried about his own health at that point. But I'm glad that New York City is going to be looking into this allegation.
Yeah, hopefully, because it doesn't benefit them, especially with all the other strains that they have with everything that's going on, to look into something like this. But this is important because this could go across multiple levels of workers that are still on the front lines. We're giving props to the medical professionals and folks that are continuing to go to work, the delivery drivers, the grocery store people, the pharmacists, all the people that are still staying in those essential places for being on the front lines. And this is, I think, some aspects of it that we forget. We're like, oh, thank you. The delivery driver is out here risking his life. There's people in the warehouses still. There's people still putting things together. And who knows the level of contamination and contagion that's happening there as well. From subways and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Those things are, I believe, still need to be sanitized.
Yeah, 100%. Now, de Blasio said the allegation is because he spoke up for the safety of his fellow workers. He was fired. I have ordered the city's Commission on Human Rights to investigate Amazon immediately to determine if this is true. If so, that would be a violation of our city human rights laws. We would act on it immediately. And I would say, we need these distribution centers to stay open. It's one of the places that are going to allow us to weather this if it turns out that we're going to have to be sheltering at home for literally months. But we are allowed to have very high expectations on Amazon for what they're going to do. In return, by the way, they're going to make more money than they've ever made before. Not only in terms of far more sales, but probably they're going to be helped by the government. But that means they have to have extremely liberal pay, benefits, sick leave, obviously. They need to be encouraging people to take it if they feel sick. They need to be doing testing all the time. They need to be pervasively cleaning these facilities. They need to take all of these precautions and make it, and by the way, they are hiring a lot of people. They should be making these places that people want to work during this time. But those people need to be paid well. They need to be compensated for the risk to themselves that they're taking by simply being there. And they need to be assured that they are not risking their lives by working for Amazon during this time.
Again, even if you're going to do it selfishly, I always wonder this about businesses. If you're going to be selfish and only think about yourselves and the bottom line and getting something done, you need your employees there. You need them to do it. You need them to play their part in the process of getting your product out. So if you don't care about their health and their safety and they end up sick, you're losing employees. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure, we'll hire another one. But then you go through that whole process and you just don't care about the health and safety of the people that are actually getting you to your bottom line. Yeah. I don't understand it. Even if you're selfish, part of being selfish is making sure the people that are helping you take as much money as possible are there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so look, for everyone, all the employees like Chris Smalls who are, they're raising these concerns, that are letting people know what's going on in these facilities, we desperately need this. Okay, one more topic coming up in just a moment, but Daniel Berger says Martha Stewart was hurt more for insider trading. Yeah, they got Martha Stewart. Senators might be a little bit more difficult. Dutch Morgan says, I work in dietary in a medical center. The changes that have been happening have been drastic. Temperature checks, emergency medical supplies, multiple floors turned into quarantine. Yeah, we're probably going to see an expansion of that over time. And a goddess has a dancing emoji. It says, "You're amazing." Yeah. Thank you. Goddess, I really appreciate that. Okay, we're running out of time, so we're going to do one more story. We're unfortunately going to be skipping the environment story again. I know that's weird for the damage report, but we're going to get to it, hopefully tomorrow. Sure. It'll hold. And there's one more that's just time-wise, we got to get to this. So, today, Bernie Sanders is going to appear on The View, and so they put up a little promo of some of the things they'd be asking him about. Take a look at this.
Bernie Sanders answer accusations that he's politicizing the pandemic to push his Medicare for All agenda, and that staying in the race could guarantee Trump another term. He's live on The View. Next.
Okay, so that he's politicizing coronavirus to push his Medicare for All agenda. And by staying in the race, he's guaranteeing Trump wins again. And then they put up a smiling face of Bernie Sanders, like he's ecstatic about these horrible, underhanded, deceitful things he's doing. And then they say, Bernie Sanders, next. Like, this is The View. Wait, this isn't Tucker Carlson. Look at the spin on that thing. You can barely see the screen because it's moving around so fast.
The slanted view. I don't know. I'm not sure if the viewers of this show would see it as a bit of a blatant, biased promo, or once they do have the interview, if they're going to ask him questions fairly and they're just looking to hook people. I don't know. Actually, I do kind of know. That's their point of view. That's what they're going to go with. That's the whole idea. We saw when they had AOC on, the approach they had with her as well. So he's using this pandemic to push the nefarious Medicare for All. Hey, are we pushing the way that the predatory healthcare system and private healthcare industry we have now is utilizing this to benefit further? Are we talking about any of that? No, it's just going to go to, he's taking this opportunity for a problem that has been long standing in our country to do something about it because he's just a senator. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what our people in Congress and our senators are supposed to do? Find something that's a problem and then address it by changing the way we do things and making sure that more people are protected. Instead, you're just supposed to, what are you supposed to do? We complain about how the Congress does nothing, which they generally do nothing. But when a congressman or senator decides to do something, it's seen as taking advantage of a bad situation to make it better.
It's such a weird spin. Like, they could just say, is the coronavirus evidence that Medicare for All could have saved many lives? Next up, Bernie Sanders. You could have said that. Yep. You could say, is the fact that Joe Biden is effectively hiding from everyone, is that proof that Bernie Sanders was right to stay in the race? Bernie Sanders after this. Like, you could do that. And by the way, think about if Joe Biden was to be on The View. Do you think that they would have done one like that? Would they have said, is Joe Biden hiding because he can't keep it together for a 5-minute media appearance? And what the hell is going on with the Tara Reade accusation? Like, do you really think that they would come at him like oppositional like that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Will Joe Biden's status quo plan on healthcare continue us down this same disastrous path that we're seeing with the coronavirus?
Yeah.
That's his stance, is status quo healthcare system.
Or how about this?
Failing us.
How about is Joe Biden's refusal to contrast himself with Trump on coronavirus guaranteeing a second Trump term? You could do that. The View. They have millions of viewers. They're so important and influential.
What was their tagline? The most influential political show of our time, or something like that. There was something they said, they're the most influential political discussion show, because the number of people that watch it,
they probably are.
Yeah, they are, because the number of people that watch it that are just this block of voting, that when they hear and assess what they have to say, they make the decisions based off of it.
Yeah. I don't watch it, with good reason. But I will be checking to see how the actual appearance went. Unfortunately, we broadcast during that time. Anyway, JR, thank you so much. Had a lot of fun talking with you. Always glad to have you on. It wouldn't be JR Wednesday without you. We'd probably be sued if we tried to be it without you.
Make sure we, I'll have my attorneys call you. Let's just keep track. We should make sure we can refer back to this screen next week. We're gonna see where your quarantine beard has come. Also see where mine has gone.
Okay, so stare directly at the camera, and then let's do a side shot.
Am I side yet?
Yeah. And we're just going to track the growth over time. Yeah, I don't know if you saw super fast. Have you seen the March 1st, March 31st memes that are going around?
No.
Where people like, it's March 1st, March 31st. It's a photo of you on March 1st and a photo on March 31st, but they'll put like memes from movies and stuff. And like, yeah. So mine, you don't watch Lord of the Rings, but mine would be Theoden, but in reverse. Like, Theoden. I get older.
I'll have to look it up now.
Yeah.
Theoden. Yeah, because I accidentally did this, because I posted a picture saying the next time I get a chance to leave the house, and I posted a picture of Billy Ocean, who has white dreadlocks. He's an older gentleman now, and it was a similar thing. So maybe I'll join that meme.
Yeah, we're working on it. Okay, thank you, JR. Everybody who's been watching, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody who's been participating in the chat, other than the bots and the super chat. It's great to have your support. We've got a lot more planned for the week, so same time, basically. We'll see you then. JR, stay safe.
Thanks, you guys. Hey, definitely be safe. Wear your gloves, put your masks on, don't cough in people's faces. Just keep your distance. It's very straightforward. And if you can, stay at home.
Stay at home. Okay, we'll see you soon.